You finally decided to try keto or carnivore. That means you threw away the junk food, bought steak, eggs, and some healthy vegetables, maybe some spinach and broccoli. But what if I told you that the spinach, that could be the very thing that's going to make you sick, miserable, and cause you to quit your keto or carnivore diet before you ever have the chance to heal? For years, you've been trapped by this lie that says that it takes willpower to succeed. That's not true. It's not your fault that your diet fails. The real reason is that so many people feel awful when they start their keto journey, and it's not because of the willpower you don't have. It's because unwittingly you continue to flood your body with hidden plant toxins that can trigger joint pain, that can trigger gut issues, and an insatiable amount of cravings. Understanding this hidden trigger is actually the key to finally breaking that cycle of starting, feeling awful, and quitting. So let's talk about how we're going to do this and the right way to start a keto or carnivore lifestyle from day one. Please subscribe. And in order to do that, you need to understand that there's three different kind of traps that we need to avoid. The first one I want to talk about is this all or nothing thinking. The diet industry has this really interesting way of painting this picture that your diet is going to be perfect. It's going to be some kind of fantasy. You'll start and the weight is going to melt off, and you're just going to, in a very short period of time, like less than a year, you're going to be at goal weight. And funny enough, a keto lifestyle kind of creates that illusion because so many people start and lose weight quickly and keep it off. And I'm talking from experience. I'm one of those people. 5 months after starting my keto diet, I was at goal weight, and I've been at goal weight ever since. So when people see my story, it's confusing. Why can't I do the same thing? But I need you to understand something unfortunate. This creates a pass-fail mentality. This idea that if I just do what Violet did, then my weight loss journey will be as swift as hers was. Now, what you might be thinking is that the one bad meal that you had, well, that's the difference. That's why I didn't get the results that I wanted to get, but Violet got the results that she got. Well, let me tell you something, Wellness Warrior. That's absolutely not true. First of all, when I started my keto lifestyle, I had no idea what I was doing, which means the first, I would probably guess, I haven't looked at chronometer in a long time, but I'm going to guess the first 2 months, maybe month and a half, I wasn't doing it right. I didn't actually start doing keto properly until I bought a scale. I didn't have a kitchen scale. So I bought a kitchen scale. That's when I started to actually understand that I was still eating 70-ish grams of carbs per day. My body was losing weight because I had removed a lot of carbohydrate. But today, after living all the things I've lived, I know that I was nowhere near being in a ketogenic state. But my body was doing better. My body was happy that I diminished the amount of garbage that was coming in. One mistaken meal doesn't mean that you failed unless when you do that mistake, you give up, which happens to so many of us because we do that mistake and it doesn't end up being one meal. Eating the one meal leads into us wanting to eat a bunch of meals, and I'm going to talk more about that in a minute. But the point that I'm making right now is that we need to understand that if you were renovating a house, let's say you're renovating your kitchen, you wouldn't expect the kitchen to be clean and usable at the end of each day of the renovation, especially if you're doing a major renovation. You're ripping out the cabinets and you're ripping out the kitchen sink and the floors are being changed. If you're doing everything, then you'll understand that as long as you see progress happening, yeah, the kitchen's gonna be a mess. It's gonna be unusable. But in the long run, your kitchen is going to be hopefully amazing. Healing is a messy process. Many of us are going to start keto or carnivore, whichever one you're doing, and you're going to feel worse at the very beginning than feel better. And that's absolutely normal. And if we don't let ourselves understand how normal that is, then what'll happen is that we get trapped into doing things that we shouldn't be doing because we don't understand the process our body is actually trying to do. Your body is trying to rebuild a healthy version of you within you. That's a renovation. That means things are not going to be feeling great until they feel amazing. And they can feel amazing. This is the part that we need to make that mess before we get to have the beautiful end product of a lovely looking new kitchen. Breaking apart the fat and those poorly made tissues to build new heart, new lung, right? Better skin, all the things that we actually want, and to live our life at a healthy weight. To get that, we need to be patient. Which brings me to trap number 2. In that process of trying to be patient, some of us end up in what I would like to call carb purgatory. And this is that thing where we are not being patient. We want to kind of have our cake and eat it too. That analogy where I want weight loss, but I still want to eat fun stuff. And whether you're making the mistake that I made at the very beginning and you're not tracking properly, and so your body is kind of coming in and out of ketosis, or you're making the mistake of every few days you're having a cheat meal or cheat something. What we don't realize is happening is that we keep kicking ourselves out of ketosis, which means that that dreaded keto flu that everyone talks about, this is what's supposed to happen. When you start your keto lifestyle, your body is going to go through a phase where the sugar's impact on your body needs to be let go. What is the sugar's impact on your body? The sugar is doing a lot of internal stuff that's damaging, but it's also doing some brain stuff that's triggering. So, you know that thing where you might see or smell from, in my case, it was chocolate. Some pizza is another one that used to get me. French fries, another. Like you could see or smell these things and just feel like I have to have one. I feel compelled to eat it. That's happening in our brain. The sugar from these foods is triggering our brain and causing us to want to eat it. It's making us chase. And then so we have this compulsive relationship with these foods, but then when we take these carbohydrates out of our life, because we had this brain chemistry compulsive relationship with these foods, we end up living withdrawal. Withdrawal is keto flu. They're two, well, keto flu is a made up stupidity to kind of hide the fact that you're having withdrawal because companies would never want you to know that. And so they kind of put out this cutesy term. It's not cute. Not being in control of the food you're eating is quite damaging to your body. And it causes you to consistently eat things that are unhealthy, that are harming you, causing you to struggle, causing you to be overweight. All the things you don't like are happening because you're overeating sugar. So what happens is that when we have that cheat day, we get kicked out of ketosis, which causes our chasing. So our cravings are back. We feel compelled to eat these things. And so we have maybe a cookie that turns into a bunch of ice cream and pizza and a weekend of craziness. And then we're mad at ourselves and we start over again and we go back through that keto flu and we feel horrible and we're committing that I'm not going to do that again. But then I feel really proud of myself because I did a week or two of eating on plan. And what do we do to treat ourselves? Well, we have another cookie or ice cream because, well, possibly by this point now I can have the ice cream and moderate like everybody else. And this is part of the trap, wellness warrior, that I'm trying to get you to see because nobody moderates. None of us are moderating. And I want to be very clear about this. We think other people moderate because they don't get pulled by the stuff we get pulled by. So the fact that I got pulled, compelled to eat by the classics, chocolate, ice cream, pizza, and french fries, made me believe that when I could see people like they were not pulled by these things, I was, and maybe they weren't even pulled by chips or they weren't pulled by cookies. I thought they were doing amazing until I realized that what was pulling them was pasta or bread or rice or tacos or whatever. Like there's something that's causing you to eat off plan. And this is why on some level we all end up somewhat overweight, or, and this is the other way that they trap us, wellness warrior, we're only looking for weight. But again, I'm going to talk about that one later. For right now, I just want to point out to you that it's the compulsion that was causing you to not be able to avoid that all or nothing thinking from trap number one, because I don't have logical control of what I'm doing, and therefore I'm compelled to eat off and therefore if I'm doing this all or nothing thing, when I touch it, I get pulled back in. When I'm pulled back in, right? I'm pulled back in, I'm overeating. And then I'm in this carbohydrate purgatory, right? Where I fight my way out and I swear I'm going to be good. And then I do good for a really long time, but then I don't understand that I don't actually control compulsion. Compulsion controls me. And because I haven't labeled this thing I'm doing with these high carbohydrate foods correctly as a compulsion, I keep allowing myself to touch these things that pull me back in. And it throws us right back to the beginning of the game. You're back at square one, wellness warrior, enduring the pain of starting over and not understanding why you're there again. So I just explained to you why you're there. You don't control eating cookies. Moderating pasta, moderating rice is not a real thing. Moderating the thing that gets you. This is the context I want you to start looking at it from. Don't believe that because you don't care about pizza, that the fact that you must have rice with every meal doesn't say something, or vice versa. What got me was chocolate, and I needed to accept that chocolate was no different than pizza, was no different than french fries, was no different than ice cream. They all have too much carbohydrate and cause me to chase. And then that cheat snack or meal becomes a weekend, becomes a month, becomes I've stopped the diet altogether and I'm starting over, if I even allow myself to start over, because we have that other problem that I just said we're in, which is this all or nothing, I'm a failure if I didn't do it the first time, thinking that causes us to hate trying to get our health back, trying to be healthy. We hate it because we fail every time we try. Another thing I want us to think about when it comes to this is sometimes we're in limbo because we aren't tracking. I really want you to allow yourself to understand that we can only solve things that we're actively paying attention to, actively looking at. What get measured gets improved is a sentence that I heard way back when in school. And it makes so much sense in almost every scenario I've ever lived that I was trying to change something. If I'm not paying attention to it and tracking what's trackable, how do I know if I'm improving or not? I am so sad, wellness warrior, to tell you that at the very beginning of my keto lifestyle, because I didn't even think that weight loss was going to be an outcome of what I was doing, I was trying to heal a hip pain, so a pain issue. The first 3 months, I didn't even check what I weighed to know how much weight. Like, at the very, 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 very beginning, no, not the first 3 months, the first few months, because I checked at one point, but I didn't know how much I started off with weighing. And it frustrates me because I probably lost even more than what I've calculated it to be based on, you know, when I did start checking. But how much better might I have done if so that first few weeks when I wasn't paying attention to how much carbohydrate I was eating in that way. I just was eating a certain style of food, but I wasn't checking, well, how much carb is in this, to only find out that I was still eating 70 to 100 grams of carbs per day when everything that I had read was telling me that I needed to do 20. Are you in that situation? Are you still allowing yourself to eat too many carbs because you don't want to feel deprived? And maybe you're still having low energy. Maybe you're still having all the negative of sugar because you don't even realize that getting to that number actually changes things. By getting into a ketogenic state, wellness warrior, your body functions differently. And that's like a really interesting thing to say because you're still eating food. You're still eating many of the same foods that you'd eaten before, just, well, some of them are gone. Like I actually stopped eating rice, potatoes, and pasta and bread. Like those were actually gone from my diet. But the other vegetables that I was allowing myself to eat, like peppers, and like at the very beginning, I didn't really do enough research to figure out what's a high sugar fruit versus, high sugar vegetable versus a low sugar vegetable. As I did more research alongside of doing what I was doing, I started to understand that some of the vegetables I still had on my plate were probably causing me to be over. And when I verified, I was over. But the lovely thing about making that verification, wellness warrior, so I started because I had hip issues. So the lovely thing about that was that when I made that change from those high sugar vegetables to the lower sugar vegetables, and I actually got myself down to 20, within a month and a half, my hip pain was gone. So a total of 3 months into eating healthy, my hip pain, the reason I started a keto diet in the first place, was gone. No more fear of walking, actually able to walk. No more worrying about the surgery that the doctors was telling me was okay. I need you guys to understand that the enemy in the room, the enemy that we're trying to figure out here, is that we keep thinking that we need carbohydrates for fun. We keep thinking that we need carbohydrates for health. Neither of those two pieces of information are actually true. We don't need them to entertain ourselves because I'll tell you, living my life, doing my activities, riding my longboard, going snowboarded again. Yesterday we went for a Swifty ride. So that's a scooter. We went for a Swifty ride for the first time in a long time, and it was hard work pushing that scooter. Um, but because we did a lot of hills and stuff, and like, but whatever, it was hard work, but it was fun. Like we came home and we were happy that we did it. I'm happier doing stuff today than I've ever been eating anything. I don't care that I don't eat garbage. I don't miss it. I love my life today. I want you to love your life today. So that second trap, we need to get past it. And the third trap that I want to talk about are the hidden landmines in the food that we're actually eating. So we've been told that fruits and vegetables are the healthiest things that we can eat, healthier than meat, fish, poultry, and eggs. And I'm here to tell you, Wellness Warrior, that that is absolutely backwards. It is so backwards that it's insulting to us as humans that our bodies are functioning the way that they're functioning. And we see it. Our bodies are inflamed. Our bodies are overweight. Our bodies have skin rashes and problems. We cannot manage normal things like walking around in the sun without getting lesions, our body is struggling because they have us believing that meat, fish, poultry, and eggs are causing us to be overweight and sick, when that is actually what our body considers food. That meat, fish, poultry, and eggs, your body considers that food. Your body does not consider carbohydrate-based foods, so all plants, human bodies, does not consider that food. We eat plants because they're fun to eat. We eat plants because they're cheap for companies to feed to us. We eat plants because we've been brainwashed to believe that they're healthier than meat, fish, poultry, and eggs. But our body does not want these things. And how do I know that? Well, let's look at what happens. When we eat plants, automatically we increase the amount of toxins coming into our body. This is happening because, first of all, sugar is a toxin that we get from plants. Now, let's be clear about something. Our body makes all the carbohydrates we ever need. We never need to eat them, ever. Our body makes them. So, when we eat them, automatically we are at toxic levels. And especially for the carbohydrate called fructose, our body at 5 grams of fructose coming in, if we step to 6, we've just gone past the amount that our intestines can filter out, and now it's assaulting our liver. This is known information. I got that information from Dr. Maggs, and Dr. Dan Maggs, if you want to look him up, he talked about that. It's known information. And yet, here we are today eating fruit, which is absolutely high in fructose. So our body makes all the carbohydrates that we need. If we eat any, we are overloading ourselves. But there are other toxins in vegetation so I'm going to talk about oxalates, because that's the other one that has become quite spoken about recently. And I want to point something out, that even if you don't eat any vegetation, your body would produce oxalates. It's a natural byproduct of breaking down certain things in our body, like to do certain processes. A small amount of oxalates would be produced, and then your body would detoxify it and you would pass it out. And you'd be fine, because the same way that your body knows how much sugar, so glucose, should be in you, your body knows what's a tolerable amount of oxalate that can be in there. And when it's doing its processes, it's never making an amount that would overload the system. But what happens when we start eating fruits and vegetables and grains and seeds, right? What happens when we eat these things? Well, then all of a sudden, our body, instead of just having a small amount of toxins, oxalates, it's now dealing with an extremely large amount of oxalate coming in. And what do we know our body does with toxins? Our body grabs those toxins and stores it away in fat and other tissues, just like sugar, because these toxins cause damage to the body, just like sugar. So let's talk about some of the things that I found out. First of all, that humans should never eat. Humans should never eat spinach. The amount of oxalate in spinach is devastating to small children and can actually stunt their growth and all kinds of bad things, because it grabs the calcium and magnesium, and children never should touch spinach, and adults shouldn't eat it either. It's damaging to our bodies. Almonds has a very high amount of oxalate, like toxic levels. We shouldn't be eating these things. But yet, when we are making our keto-friendly snacks, what's the nut flour that we tend to use? The almond flour, which is very high in oxalate, which disrupts so much. By the way, most nuts are high in oxalate. Just putting it out there. Potatoes. Another one so those French fries that I love so much were damaging me. So not only did I have the high sugar content, but I had the oxalate content damaging my body. Cacao powder, which is, from the powder that makes chocolate, which then means that all chocolate high in oxalate, and that's dark or light or dark or sweet chocolate, high in oxalate. Oh, guess where else we find them? Grains. So the pasta and the bread that we're eating, seeds, those sunflower seeds and all the others, like whatever pumpkins, seeds have oxalate. Teas have oxalates. Even our precious low carb raspberries are high in oxalate, wellness warriors. Fruits are high in oxalate. So, are we willing to risk the damage to our kidneys and those kidney stones that we all just love so much? Are we willing to risk them? The gout pain that happens in our when we have these flare-ups, the buildup of oxalate that causes damage to our eyes and our heart and our bones and our blood vessels. Are we willing to risk all that damage because we love these foods so much? Oxalates are an anti-nutrient. They cause us to not be able to get access to that very, very, very important calcium and magnesium that we need. And a lot of times people eat spinach for the calcium that the oxalate in the spinach blocks them from being able to utilize. What's really frustrating is that right now I've only spoken about two toxins. I could add a third, right? Because my story was nightshades and the toxin in nightshades, which I can't remember it right now, the name of it, but that was my story. And finding out that when I was eating a tomato or whatever. So, okay, so let's talk about how do you find this out? There's two ways that oxalate dumping, which is what they call it, can impact your life. The first way is that you go from eating a standard American diet, standard Canadian diet, standard insert your country there diet, to carnivore. You just take everything out. And your body is like, woohoo! And it just starts releasing those oxalates back. Like it's like we can get rid of them now. But if your body dumps a bunch of oxalates into the system, yeah, that's going to cause problems because it's a toxin. You're going to be in pain. Things are not going to work well. It's going to be problematic. And it's apparently much more painful than even the withdrawal that you live when you do a withdrawal from sugar. But I need us to understand it's the same process. Your body is like, yes, get rid of this stuff. It's purging, right? And your body feels horrible. And we are talking about oxalates, okay? And I'm talking also about that chemical in nightshades. But we need to understand that there's a different chemical in every family because of vegetation, because plants do not want to be eaten. And the plants are protecting themselves, especially their seeds. And so grains are also seeds, which I didn't know that. I learned that. I didn't remember that, learned that, whatever. I didn't know. But grains and seeds are seeds. And beans are seeds too. So, like, there are all these things that we eat, and we're surprised that we don't feel well when we're eating the thing that the plant would want to make it to the ground, germinate, and make a new plant. We're eating its baby and not really understanding that, of course, it's going to do something to try to protect its baby. Whether it's lectins or it's oxalates or it's whatever other toxin that the plant is putting in itself to stop us from eating it. We are so big, much bigger than bugs. It takes so much of the stuff to show the damage that by the time the damage is showing, unfortunately, we've lived so much of our life, we don't believe that it's the plant that made the damage until you dump. So until you get rid of all this, right? And then, of course, here's the other thing that happens is that you stop eating the large amounts of vegetation, feel worse, actually feel sick. And you think, no, I need to eat those things. They were what was keeping me healthy. No, they were keeping you dependent. They were keeping you inflamed. And like your body was saving you from that pain by storing that stuff in your tissues, whether it be fat tissues or muscle tissue or your eye tissue or all the things that are being damaged because it can't just let it float around, we would pass. I need you to understand, Wellness Warrior, that oxalate dumping is a real thing and it can happen to you if you just go from standard diet to carnivore overnight. Now, there are some of you who are already carnivore. So you've made it all the way through the process. You are carnivore. And then somehow you have this kind of surprise attack thing happen where you bring back something into your diet, maybe something that you think is healthy. And what happens? Your body reacts. You feel horrible and you have oxalate dumping happening. So and now the question is, well, why did that happen? And Sally Norton helped me to understand that there's both sides of this coin. If you do a nice slow taper, your body might be just slowly, as it rebuilds you, eliminating the toxins, and you have no symptoms of oxalate dumping. But if you bring something back that's high in oxalate, your body could see those oxalate because now they're in the system as a trigger. We got to get rid of all of this stuff right now, and it just starts dumping, trying to get rid of it before basically you start poisoning it again. It's unfortunate because again, it does not feel good, and you might have been years into the process. According to Sally, she's talked to many people that even years later, their body still had a reaction. So it still had oxalates to get rid of. But that makes sense to me because, as we know, it takes a human body. Like some parts of our human body regenerate in weeks, but there are parts that take years. So it can take up to 20 years for our body to fully regenerate, like completely. There's not a cell left that was there 20 years ago. And because that's the case, yes, even if you've been 10 years doing keto or carnivore, it's quite possible that you could be still carrying a lot of oxalate and other toxins that your body doesn't want there. So you could trigger a dump. And it's important to understand that if that happens, it's not because the diet stopped working, you triggered something. And that's actually how I figured out that I had a problem with nightshades. I did weeks and weeks of keto without having any tomato, obviously no potato because I wouldn't have done that. No, like I didn't have anything that was from the nightshade family. I wasn't even, yeah. But then one day I had guacamole that had actually, I put a lot of tomato in it. I made it myself, so I knew everything that was in there, but I put a lot of tomato in it because I had a tomato, I wanted to use it. And did I react? And that sent me down this path of trying to figure out. And then eventually, eggplant also got me, and it was not a large amount. And so I realized even paprika started to get me. And I started to realize that I have an issue with nightshades. What I want you to understand is that finding out that I had an issue with nightshades wasn't a problem. It was actually something that saved me because at that point, what I realized is that eating nightshades wasn't helpful. Like it was keeping the inflammation going in my body. And again, lucky for me that that happened early on in my journey. Lucky for me that I was researching, I still research. I'm constantly trying to make sure I'm up to date with information about keto and carnivore. Why? Because it's important for us to understand that good health doesn't happen accidentally. Good health happens because we make it happen by eating healthy every single day. Okay, so how do you safely start a keto or carnivore lifestyle? Let's talk about how to safely begin your journey. And the first thing I want to make sure that I explain is that, yes, it's important for you to figure out if you're going to taper your carbs or you're going to just jump right in and just like reduce it down altogether to 20. The one thing that, again, Sally Norton helped me to understand is that even at 20, there are a lot of things that we're eating that's bringing in enough oxalate that stops us from having a problem. Like the toxins are still there. It's as we clean up, our body's going to ask us to do more. And so I'm very comfortable saying that you can jump to 20 grams of carbs like immediately. Yes, that will mean, like I did, that you're going to have much more intense withdrawal symptoms. You can taper. Let's say you go to, like the average person is eating like 400-ish grams of carbs per day. So if you went to 200, just cut it in half, let's say, and you did 200 for like a week, and then you cut it in half again, and now you do 100 for a week, and then you cut it in half and you do 50 for a week, and then you go to 20. That's another way to do it. But of course, you can see it will take you much longer to get down to your 20 grams of carbs. And that means that all that time, toxins are still coming in, right? So, but personality matters here. Like I'm that person that I needed to do it, just do it. I'm the rip the band-aid off kind of person. Because if I give myself leeway and say, oh, I'm going to do a week of 100 gram or 200 grams, let's say, the first week is 200, I probably would have done that for a month. And then I probably would have done the next 100 for a month. And I would have messed around and I would have kept it going longer than necessary because that's the kind of game that I know I play with myself. And so that's why I jumped right in. But you need to know yourself because if you think you'll play that game with yourself, wellness where I'm telling you, the 3 days of withdrawal that I lived cannot compare with the fact that 5 months later, I was sitting at goal, feeling amazing, and have been at goal ever since, have felt amazing 90% of the time ever since. Of course, I learned things about food as I was going along, that things that triggered me, that I had to make more adjustments. So sometimes I didn't feel great as I was learning and making adjustments. But the point is, I was doing amazing. So you need to know yourself. What's your style? Are you a jump right in kind of person, or are you going to take it slow? Do what makes sense for you, Wellness Warrior. The next thing that I'm going to say, part two, because there's 3 steps to this process. What I would say to do that I wish I knew about doing. Day one, add more salt to what you're eating. When you go to that, when you get to 20, you need to add more salt. Why? And I guess this is more for the people who jump right in. If you do a slow taper down, you don't need to do this. But for those of us who jumped in, what we need to understand is that hydrate means hold on to water. So carbohydrates help us to retain water. This is part of the reason that every person who's going to say something negative about keto or carnivore will say that, well, at the beginning of the diet, you're only losing because you're losing water weight. That is true. But I want to point out that if you're holding, like I was, about 20 pounds of water on your body unnecessarily, why would you want to be? So carbohydrates hold water. Salt helps us to hold water. They're both great ways to make sure that we keep our electrolytes with us. So what I want you to do is make sure that you do yourself a favor, and if you or when you drop your carbs down to 20, add a bit more salt to your food. And Dr. Fung, I think it was, or Dr. Westman, both of them talk about, the benefits of this stuff. But I think it was Dr. Westman that said to salt your food to taste. Just, your food should taste good to you. If you've removed the carbohydrates, your mouth is gonna want more salt because your body's gonna want the salt because it's gonna want to hold on to some of this water that you're getting rid of. Because the point is not to become dehydrated. The point is to get back to normal salt levels. And so the other thing that I will point out here is that every single cell in our body has a sodium potassium pump. So we actually need the salt. What we don't need is the extra carbohydrates, as I said earlier. Let's be proactive and make sure that we can hold on to as many of the electrolytes in our body as possible by slowing down the speed at which we are losing that water weight. The third thing, if you're going to do carnivore, this is where it becomes really important to transition from keto to carnivore as well. So I do find that it's the dangerous thing to go from standard American diet straight to carnivore. You are risking an oxalate dump. I honestly believe that your life will be easier, happier, better if you do keto first. Get in there, get comfortable, eat those low glycemic vegetables and get yourself like settled. And then if what you really want to do is carnivore, then make that transition and go to carnivore. So then like you just now eliminate after your body got all settled, you're past the keto flu, you can eat keto, and you don't even blink about not eating the rice or transition over to carnivore and allow yourself then to let go of all of those things. I believe that that's going to help you minimize the possibility of oxalate dumping. The other part that I want to talk about is that it's not just about getting to keto or carnivore safely, it's about staying safe in your new way of eating. I really want everyone who is currently in a keto carnivore space, like you're eating this way right now, but even if you're new, I want you looking forward to this. This is supremely important. Most people have lost weight before. That's not the problem that we're living. We're not living that we've never lost weight. What we're living is that we lose weight and then put it back on and then fight to lose it again and then put it back on. What we struggle with is we start keto, lose 10 pounds, get off keto, put it back on, right? Like we do these tortures. We do these tortures to ourselves where we don't allow ourselves to have a plan for sticking with the thing that's working once we get there. Whatever you did to lose the weight is going to be the thing that you will need to do to maintain the weight loss. Again, in our diet world, there's this crazy, ridiculous wisdom that says when you lose the weight, you turn around and reintroduce all the foods that you were eating that caused you to gain weight. And somehow this wisdom prevails. And I want to call it out right now and say it's dumb. It's stupid. It's ridiculous. It's not wisdom. This fear we have that, oh my gosh, if I don't eat, in my case, if I don't eat peppers, somehow I'm missing whatever nutrient the pepper. No, there's no nutrients in peppers that my body ever needed. Meat, fish, poultry, and eggs is what is food. And because that is what is food, me eating those nightshades, right, those peppers, was destroying my body and I didn't know. It was making me have rashes and I didn't know. It was causing brain fog and I didn't know. Alongside the potatoes, alongside the rice, alongside the fruit, alongside all the other ridiculous vegetation, fruits and vegetables, seeds and grains, and all that stuff that I was eating that my body didn't actually need. It's a trap. I don't know how else to point this out to you. It's just another trap that causes us not to be able to stick to what we're supposed to be doing. So there are many keto and carnivore doctors that are telling you it's unnecessary to bring things back. But what I'm going to point out, I'm going to go a step further. I want you to look at it in the reverse. If I really believe that I will eat this food forever. So let's say you don't have problems with nightshades. I do, but maybe you don't, right? For example, I don't actually have problems with broccoli. For some reason, I can eat it, even though Sally Norton made me understand many people have problems with the cabbage family, right? And apparently broccoli, cauliflower, they're all part of the same family. But many people just gut issues, like I don't have those issues. But here's the question, Wellness Warrior. If you're looking into your future and you're seeing that, yeah, I would like a life where I'm able to eat broccoli in my case, right? Or maybe in your case, I'd like to be able to still eat peppers. Why would you ever remove it from your diet? What I need you to think about, Wellness Warrior, is long term. If my intention is to keep eating this forever, then never remove it. And the only thing that should cause you to remove something from your diet that you are pretty dang sure you will eat at some point is the fact that it's causing a problem and therefore actually I'm learning that I can't ever eat it again. That happened to me with tomatoes. When I figured out that the tomatoes I put in my guacamole caused that reaction, and that tomatoes, like peppers, uh, eggplant, potatoes, that all of these were from the same family called nightshades. And they were all triggering me. So let me be clear. Paprika started triggering me. They were all triggering me. What I did was I removed all of them from my diet because I understood they're just going to keep me inflamed. I did not remove broccoli at that point. I did not remove avocado at that point. Those things were not causing problems in my life, so I kept them there. Fast forward to 2 years ago when I went carnivore, so final decision, Violet's going carnivore, because I had done it, I think 5 years ago as a test to see what would that be like. But again, it was a test. And by the way, I had not read I had not read Sally Norton's book by that point. I did not know the risk of removing all that vegetation and then bringing it back to my health. Otherwise, guess what Violet wouldn't have done? I never would have done that. Ever, ever, ever. I just didn't know. So what's happening 2 years ago? At that point, I knew. When I said carnivore, it wasn't a joke. It wasn't a game. I was saying carnivore. That's what I'm going to be moving forward. And as a carnivore, did I remove coffee? No. Why? Because I knew I was going to keep drinking it. I removed everything else. What was left? At the very beginning, what was left was some spices and coffee. Now the spices are gone. There's just the coffee. Why is the coffee still there? Because I wasn't ready yet. I'm working on the coffee now. But at that time, 2 years ago, I couldn't see a world without coffee, so I didn't pull it out. Today, I can see a world without coffee because, again, I'm really starting to understand how these things are toxic, how these things are not giving us anything that we should want to have. So your stay safe plan, right? The thing that will make sure that you live healthy forever is to create a meal plan that you'll be happy to eat forever. I'm not saying that you need to get to the place where all you're eating is meat, fish, poultry, eggs, salt, like what I'm trying to do. I'm not saying you need to do that. Why am I not saying that? I'm not saying it because I don't know that that's your path. What I am saying is, please do not go to the place where you're doing meat, fish, poultry, eggs with just salt, knowing you plan to bring stuff back. You're risking triggering your body because unless you've passed that 20-year mark, chances are very good you still have pockets of something to dump. They've coined the term oxalate dumping because oxalate dumping, they see it clearly. But I sincerely believe that what I did was dump, I wish I could remember the name of this toxin, but dumped the nightshades toxin. And that's why I was feeling horrible. And that's why my pain was there. And because it wasn't enough, even though I used the tomato, it wasn't enough tomato to put me over for the day. And that's where I was like, this is weird. This is weird. And that's how I figured it out. I really, really want you guys to succeed. The best thing you can do is don't focus on forcing weight loss on your body. This is what we're doing, right? When we remove every possible thing we're just eating the bare minimum. We're trying to force weight loss. Don't do that. Make the amazing meals that you know you're going to love eating forever. Because when you do that and you're able to eat these meals forever and you're happy about eating these meals forever, I am happy with the meals that I eat. First of all, I've always liked meat. Second of all, I was never the person who was totally afraid of the fat on my meat, because I always thought it made it taste better. Whenever I cut it off, it was because I was trying to be good. And third of all, when you eat real food, you allow your mouth to get back to baseline, right? Like your taste buds are able to taste real food again without the interruption of all this high sugar stupidity. And it's amazing. It's lovely because then real food actually tastes Amazing. And you know, those of us with animals, we know this story. Like you buy a bag of whatever food you're feeding your dog or your cat or whatever animal you have, and they're eating the same thing on repeat for the 3 months that you bought of that bag of food, and they are happy to get their food. And although, you know, we do the thing where we think, well, they must want a different flavor and we'll switch it out. But I guarantee you that if you always bought the same food over and over, they would eat it just the same and be happy to have it just the same because it is their food. And when you feed your animals the right food, that's even more apparent because there's even less variety. But like I have my little cat here and it's eating fish, it's eating chicken, it's eating like so it's eating fish, meat, poultry is what it's eating, and eggs, and it's happy as heck. Like we need to be careful that we're not allowing this world of abundance and greed of companies to cause us to do things to our body that's harming us and never challenging it. Because that's what I was doing. I was letting companies feed me this line of everybody eats this thing, so you can eat it too. If you just have moderation, you'll be fine, which is not true, as I now understand. It's so obvious that I was so craving and compelled and chasing. My brain was overboard. My brain was chasing all the time. I will not think about food today for myself until it's time for supper. Compared to my kitten, where I make it 2 meals a day. So when I get up in the morning, I'm thinking about feeding him, but I'm not thinking about feeding myself, right? At supper, I will have supper. Whenever I get hungry, that's when it will happen. I want you to have that kind of freedom because then I actually live my life. I'm doing things because they're fun. I'm working because, okay, I do work. And I'm doing like, but I'm not working and sitting there thinking, oh gosh, when am I going to be able to take a break so I can eat something? Or, oh gosh, when am I going to be able to, what am I having for supper because I'm so hungry? Or I'm chasing pizza or whatever. I do want you to know, Wellness Warrior, that the goal is not about having a perfect start. That's the other thing I want to make sure that I'm clear about right now today. It's about starting, right? I want you to start with a clear intention. I want you to start and know what it is that you want to accomplish with your health. Because these are not weight loss diets. Like, and I think that's the most important thing I want you to see. You will lose weight on these diets, but they're not weight loss diets. They're better health diets. They're get my life back diets. They're new way of eating diet. They're healthy way of eating diets. And the goal of them is to keep us in a healthy space moving forward, right? Because a healthy body regulates its weight. So I can never say this enough. Your body isn't broken. It's actually reacting to the poor quality food that we've been giving to ourselves, right? We've been feeding ourselves garbage and expecting to have the bodies of athletes, healthy athletes. Let me add to that, healthy athletes. And I don't think that we give enough credit to the part where if I feed myself healthy food, that's step one. So get your carbs down to 20 or less every single day, like daily. That's the top you should be eating. If you have any kind of metabolic issue, add extra salt to help yourself with the electrolyte balance. Once you get to that 20 grams, you don't need to do it before that. If you do a slow taper, then this won't matter. You'll be adding a little extra salt as you notice the food tastes bland, and that transition should happen normally. Only remove the vegetation that you don't plan to ever eat again. That's the third piece that is so, so, so important. And whatever diet you land on, it's the diet of the future. So you need to be prepping and doing this for the long haul, Wellness Warrior. Now, if you're still on the fence about like which path is right for you, keto or carnivore, the first step you're going to need to do is to make a decision, right? You need to get clear on which one you want to do. Like I said, I think you should start with keto and then move towards carnivore if that's really what you want to do. But I think knowing even what you're aiming at, I have a video that I linked below. It's the full comparison that I made of keto versus carnivore. And in terms of after living carnivore for a year plus, how did that impact my life compared to living life as a person who did keto? And honestly, I still stand by what I said in that video. So check the video out. There's positives to both and there's negatives to both.